All right, in this tutorial, we're going to look at how to set lookup values in Dataverse using Dataflows. For those of you who haven't used Dataflows before, they are a fantastic tool when you've got to do tedious data migration, transformation types of things in the Power Platform. It's an awesome, awesome tool. And what we're going to dive into specifically is how to set lookup columns, because this is something that catches us out all the time. So what we're going to go through is firstly how to set up an alternate key. This is the absolute crux of getting it right. We've got to set this up. So I'm going to take you through how to do that. I'm then going to show you how to set the alternate key values in Dataverse using a data flow with the existing GUID from your record in Dynamics. This is really helpful, particularly when you have large data sets and you need unique values, because you've already got one, the GUID. Next, we'll look at how to deploy the changes to the target environment, and then ultimately setting up the data flow in our target environment for the lookup values and importing the data. Now, a few things to get just to get through it by way of preamble. In terms of our ERD, I've got a really simple two-table setup, a primary table and a related table. The related table has a many-to-one relationship to the primary table, meaning there is a lookup value column on the form for the related table to show the primary table. And in terms of environments, I've got a very simple two-environment setup. My source data and customizations are here in the Nathan MCP environment, and I'm going to deploy everything to the Nathan deploy environment. That's my target environment. All right, we've got enough to get started, so let's crack into it. So this is my model-driven app. This is in the Nathan MCP environment, and this is my source data. This is my primary table. You can see I've got 10 rows here. And if I go to the related table, I've got 10 rows as well with a relationship to a primary table. So this is the data that I need to port across to my Nathan deploy environment into this model-driven app. Now you'll notice that none of the customizations are here yet. We're going to deploy all of that shortly. But the first thing I've got to do is I've got to set up an alternate key on my table. So if I come here to solutions, what I'm going to do is go to my solution and into the table. Now on the table, you might notice an option here called keys. If you haven't worked with this before, keys allows you to define alternate keys on your Dataverse tables. All right, why would I ever want to do that? Because I've got a GUID. A GUID is a great key. It lets me do everything I need to do in Power Automate. Well, if you have more complex scenarios, say for example, your Dynamics Power Platform instance with Dataverse is integrated with an external system, perhaps something that's using SQL or an ERP or something else, and you need to enforce unique values, that's what this alternate key lets you do. So if I come here to keys, now you can see I've already set this up. When I go to click new key, I give it a name, and then I select the column. So what I had to do was create a column. I've done this, I've called it primary table alt key. It's just a string column. Now in a lot of the tutorials, you'll see people using the name column. Don't do this because you absolutely have to have unique values in this alternate key, otherwise it's not going to work. So what I would advise you to do is create a string column, and then what we can do is I'm going to show you how to use the GUID that comes out of the box with Dataverse to use an already created unique value. All right, so once we create that, there's a job that's going to run in the background. Now the status will be pending until it finishes running. And what that job is going to do is it's going to look at this table, this column I've created, the primary table alt key, the column that I've created. It's going to look at all the values in that column and determine, are there unique values? Are there any duplicate values? If there are, we're going to get a failed message here. But since there are no values, it's run and it's active. I've done the same thing for my related tables. So if I come here to columns, I've created a related table alternate key, and then under keys, I've created that as well. So we are ready to go. All right. Next, what I want to do is I want to set up my data flow to populate these values. Because if I come here and I add this in, let's just add this column, there's no data. So until I populate it, that alternate key isn't very useful to me. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, data flow is a great option to do this because it's going to let us use the GUID. And when we need to work with lots of data, which is what you're probably going to be doing in a production system, I had to do this a few weeks ago. We're not dealing with 10 rows. We're probably dealing with tens of thousands or millions of rows. So here in the Maker portal, click under More here on the left-hand navigation and choose Data Flows. All right, now we're going to click New Data Flow, and we're going to call this Alt ID, Primary and Related Table, and click Create. All right, now we've got to choose our data source. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose Dataverse. But you see, you've got lots of options: SharePoint, other data flows, SQL, Excel, lots and lots and lots of options. I'm going to choose Dataverse. Now, the other point that I want to make is it's critical that you set up your data flow in the target environment where you want the data to arrive. So in this case, I need to set these alt IDs in my source environment. So I'm going to set my data flow up in the source environment. But when we go to move data to the target environment, we're actually going to set our data flow up there. All right, so let's click Dataverse, and we're going to click Next. And it's going to take us through a bit of rigmarole to connect to Dataverse because that's just the way it works. So I'm going to choose my Nathan MCP environment because I'm working in this environment, but I want to set the values in this environment. So what this is going to do, it's going to think for a minute. It's going to ask me to configure the connection. And this will think for a second. It's loading all the tables. All right, we're ready to go. All of our tables are available to us. Let's go ahead and choose our tables. So we want the primary table and we want the related table. That's going to load all the columns that are available to us here. So all the data from Dataverse on this table is available to us. Let's click Transform Data because we're going to do some stuff to it before we hit the button to update. So we'll work with the primary table first. Now I really like this visual designer. It makes it really easy to see what's going on. So I'm going to expand it, and I'm going to click the plus button, and I'm going to click Choose Columns. Because what I want to do is I've got a lot of data here, and I only need a handful of columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Select, and actually all I need is the primary table ID. That's the GUID from Dataverse. That's it. That's all I need. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to do the same thing for my related table. Click the plus button, choose columns, and again, I just need the related table ID, that GUID. That's it. This makes my data a lot more manageable to work with. All right. Now I'm going to click Next. And now we're ready to start configuring our load settings. And so you can see I've got options here for both tables. I can load to a new table. I don't want to do that because it already exists. I can load to an existing table, or I can select Do Not Load. There are some scenarios where I may pull some data and use it in a transformation, but I don't actually need to load it. But in this case, we want to load to an existing table. Our primary table and our related table. So for the primary table, let's go ahead and select that. And do our primary table. Next, we need to set our import method. Now it's going to default to append. What that means is for every row here, it's just going to go and add it. Now, I don't actually want to do that because the row exists. All I want to do is I want to add the alternate ID to it. And so I'm going to select merge. Now, what this is going to do is when I come down here to column mapping, I can select a key to map on. Now, if I change this to append, it's not going to give me that option, which means it's just going to stick a row in that table for every row that's coming across. So basically, I'm going to duplicate my data. I don't want to do that. So let's come back here. Let's set merge. And then I'm going to select the key. I'm going to select the primary table ID. Now, this is really useful because not only is it going to restrict duplicates, but when I need to move data to another environment, it's going to preserve those GUIDs. Really, really useful. All right, now it's given me columns to map. Now I want the alternate key here and I want to set that value. And I'm going to choose the primary table ID, the GUID, because I want to use the GUID as my alternate ID. That's all I needed to do. I'm going to do the same thing for the related table. I'm going to come here to my load settings, choose an existing table, choose NDR related table, set merge as my import method, select the related table ID as the GUID, and then set my values. And again, for the alternate key, I want to use that related table ID because that's the value I want to use as my alternate key as well. I can leave name and the primary table lookup blank because those already contain data. That's already set. Okay, we're ready to go. So I'm going to click the button. I've got some options on how this refreshes. I could refresh it automatically on some kind of schedule, or I can just leave it as manual, which is what I want, because I'm just going to run this one time. And I'm going to click publish. And so what's going to happen is this is going to publish, and then once it's published, so it's gone and published, it's then going to go and automatically refresh. So it's published, it's now in the process of refreshing. And so when I come here to my primary table, let's go and add our column in, and we should see a value here very shortly. Check on the related table. Takes about a minute or two. For larger data sets, obviously, it can take some time. There we go, it started to run. So you can see that we're starting to get values here, and these are just, it's the same GUID that is the primary key for the record is also being used as the alternate key. So you can see how this is really useful to go and set that value, particularly when you've got really large data sets. All right, so that's run. Let's come here, let's check our related table. Awesome. All right, our data flow has run. It's going to say in progress, but this should show green soon. So we are ready to move on to the next step. So what I need to do now, before I start importing data into my target environment, is I actually need to import these changes across because my primary and related table don't exist in this target environment. Also, the keys that I've set up, the alternate keys don't exist there either. And so what I want to do is I want to deploy this solution. And so I'm going to come here to solutions, and I'm just going to use the out-of-the-box deployment pipes in Power Platform. This makes my life super easy because all I have to do is click deploy, and it's going to take me through some simple steps. So I've already got a pipeline set up. I'm just going to click deploy here. It's going to take me through a few steps. All right, we're ready to deploy. So it's evaluated the solution, and it's even written me up some really cool deployment notes using AI. Pretty cool. And I'm going to go ahead and click deploy. And so what this is going to do, it's going to take about 10 minutes to run, but this is going to go and deploy all my customizations. So it's going to take my primary and related table as well as those alternate keys into my target environment. Now, it's not going to bring the alternate key value, but the alternate key in terms of that column and that key in Dataverse will exist to receive data. All right, my solution has deployed. That took a little faster than I anticipated. It's a pretty small solution, so come here and just quickly refresh, and you can see that it's deployed. Quick aside, when you're working with pipelines, I find the solution history is where you're going to see the most up-to-date details as to whether or not it's deployed. This can hang a bit in the pipe. All right, so when I come here to my app, you can see that I've now got my primary and my related tables. They don't have data in it. We're going to take care of that in a second. And when I look at my solutions, and I come here to my managed solutions, because that's what the pipes do. They only work with managed. I should see my keys. And there they are. All right. Cool. Now we're ready to start bringing data across. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come out of the solution and here in the target environment. So now I'm working in Nathan Deploy and I want to bring data from Nathan MCP into Nathan Deploy. And in order to do that, I need to set my data flow up in the target environment, Nathan Deploy. It's really critical that you get that. Okay. So again, I'm going to click More and Data Flows. And let's create a new data flow. And we're going to call this primary and related table. And click Create. And we're going to choose Dataverse as our source. Again, we got to go through the authentication rigmarole. Now, I'm going to choose Nathan MCP as the environment to choose data from, because remember, that's my source. That's where I want to pull it from. Even though I'm working in Nathan Deploy, I want to pull it from MCP into Deploy. Configure connection. And let's go and choose some tables. So I'm going to choose my primary table and my related table. Click Transform Data. And let's choose some columns. Helps if you spell it right. There we go. All right, now I have my primary table ID and I have a name. And that's it. Oh, and my alternate key. I want to set that as well. I'm going to say OK. And let's do the same for the related table. Let's choose some columns. So I want my related table ID. I want the name. I want the primary table and the related alt key. All right. Let's go on to our next step where we map it. Again, we're going to load to an existing table. Choose NDR primary table. Here we go. Import method is, now I could choose append, but I want to choose merge because there's no data in here, right? So I could just say append, but I want to choose merge. And the reason I want to do that is I want to maintain GUIDs between the MCP environment and the deploy environment. This is a common thing where you need to maintain GUIDs in your data. It just makes life easier for lots of different scenarios. All right, so I'm going to choose my primary table ID. and it's going to go ahead and map these. Now I wanted to use so this case, I want to use the primary table alt key column because it's got data in it. It's got the same as this, the GUID and the name. Let's do the same for our related table. Again, we want to choose an existing table. Choose merge, related table ID. All right, now the primary table, I'm going to put the primary table ID here, and let's see what happens. It's probably going to come up blank, but I've been surprised before in my YouTube videos. But generally speaking, this is not going to work till we do a bit of rigmarole with the alt IDs that I'm going to show you shortly. All right, let's click next. And let's publish. And I'll check back in with you shortly as soon as that's published and run. Okay, my data flow has finished running. Let's come into the model-driven app and take a look. So we'll come to our primary table. You can see I've just refreshed this, but it has gone ahead and run. Now let's just compare GUIDs real quick. Let's take a look, and let's say ID. So that's our ID here. Let's just compare it just to prove it to ourselves. And it looks like it has done exactly that. It's maintained GUIDs. Awesome. Okay, let's take a look at the related tables. All right, I said that I have a habit of being surprised in my YouTube videos, and this is a case. Another case. This was not supposed to happen. I don't know why it did that. Generally speaking, it's not going to set that for you. Generally speaking, you're going to get a null value when you import it. But for whatever reason, it decided to embarrass me. So I've got my related table with the primary table set. So, all right, how would I go about setting this if it hadn't surprised me? Let's go about and quickly undo the work. That's not what I wanted. All right, let's clear these values out. And let's see how we could set this if it came through as null, which it's generally going to do if you're not recording a YouTube video. All right, let's come back here to our data flows. I'm going to click New Data Flow, and let's call this Link Related Table. And again, I'm going to choose Dataverse. And my source environment. All right, now I need to choose my table. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to choose my related table because that's the only one I need to bring in. Click Transform Data. All right, so in my navigation, again, I want to choose columns. And I want the related table ID. I want the primary table, that lookup value. And then I want to come down here and choose the primary table because I need to grab an attribute from it. So you can see I've got my related table ID, the GUID of the primary table that's set in the lookup, and then the record. Now I'm going to click this expand query here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my alternate key. So I'm going to choose primary table alt key, say OK. And so now I've got everything I need to go and map data. So let's go here, click next, and related table. Now again, I want to load to an existing table because it already exists, and I'm going to choose my related table. Again, I'm going to choose merge as my method. I want to use my related table ID. And then down here, you can see that I've got my primary table ID that I need to set. Now, this is where I'm going to choose my primary table alternate key. I'm going to click next. And let's go ahead and refresh. Before I do that, let's just verify that it has cleared out the related tables. It has. Awesome. Okay, let's go and set this. So I'm going to publish, and I'll check back in with you in a second. All right, my data flow has run, and when I come here to my app and refresh, you can see that it's gone and set that value. Now you're asking, why did I go through all that rigmarole when it worked the first time? I'm as surprised as you are. It wasn't supposed to do that. Generally speaking, it's not going to set that lookup value for you in the data flow unless you do what I just showed you. All right, let's look at one more method that you can use. So let's go ahead and let's clear these values out one more time. And let's come back to our data flow. Actually, let's just create a new one. And let's call this link related alternate method. Again, we're going to choose Dataverse as our source, go through all the rigmarole. And we're going to choose MCP as our source environment again and configure the connection. All right, now in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose both my primary and my related tables. This can be useful if you have a more complex scenario. I'm going to click Transform Data. And what I'm going to do is with my primary table, I'm going to choose my columns. Primary table ID, and in this case, I want the alternate key as well. So I'm going to choose those. I'm going to now come and choose my columns on the related table. Related table ID, and I want the primary table ID. All right, now what I need to do is I need to link these together. What I need to do is I also need to choose the primary table. Here we go. Now I'm ready to link them together. And so again, I'm going to click this expand query, and I'm going to choose my alternate ID, my alternate key. Next, what I want to do is I need to merge queries. Now it's going to give me, I see the related table, and I'm going to choose the table to merge. And I'm going to choose my primary table. Now it generally doesn't matter what you select here, but I'm going to choose inner join because that's effectively what we're doing. And I'm going to choose my alternate key, and I'm going to choose my alternate key here. And it's matched 10 rows. So on the related table, it's got that alternate key for the primary table, and the alternate key that I've defined on the primary table itself. Let me come back here and just verify that these have gone. Awesome. All right, so now we've got a match. We're ready to go. Let's say OK. And you can see that it's linked these together. So we've grabbed our primary table and then we've used it to match the related primary table to the related table. Let's click Next. All right, now we can see we've got two tables that we need to configure. Now on the primary table, we're going to click Do Not Load. We don't need to load those in. They already exist. So we just needed some values from it. Next, we're going to come to Related Table. And again, we're going to choose Load to an Existing Table. Choose the NDR Related Table. Input method is Merge. I'm going to choose my Related Table ID as the key. And then you can see here the primary table. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my primary table alternate key. And that's going to let me import this in. So let's click Next. And we're going to manually refresh and publish. And I'll check in with you in a second. All right, my data flow has run, and if I come here to the app and refresh, you can see that it has set the related primary table on the related table. So you can see those are two different ways of using data flows to set a lookup column on, sorry, let me rephrase. Two different methods with data flows to set a lookup column. So that brings us to the end of the demo. So what we've covered off is, it's not what I wanted. Wanted this, here we go. All right, so we've covered off alternate keys, what they are, how to set them, how to set alternate keys with the data flow using the existing GUID in Dataverse, how to deploy all of our changes to the target environment, and then how to use the data flow for lookup values, including a surprise. It did it for us even though it wasn't supposed to. And then ultimately importing the data. So I've taken you through how to use just the record associated to the table, as well as to look up the record and then bring merge queries across. I want to give a huge shout out to Rami Moonla, my fellow MVP, fellow Kiwi, for showing me these methods. These are super useful when you need to do complex stuff with data or just work with a lot of data in Dataverse. All right, go do something awesome, even agentic on the Power Platform, and I'll talk to you all soon.